Hello everyone, and welcome to my video about the hues of history, where we explore the vibrant world of pigments and their transformative role in art from the Renaissance to colonial Latin America. As a student in art history and architecture, I'll guide you through how these colors not only painted canvases, but also colored the fabric of society itself. Join me as we uncover the economics, cultural, and artistic narrative tied to this pigment. Pigments are the soul of an artist's palette, yet their stories stretch far beyond the canvas. In the Renaissance, pigments like lapis lazuli were not mere colorants but symbols of power and prestige. Imagine the intrigue of lapis lazuli's journey from the remote corners of Afghanistan, where it was mined, to the vibrant art scene of Renaissance Europe. This brilliant blue adorned the robes of the Virgin Mary and other divine figures, reflecting its heavenly value. The rarity of lapis lazuli made it as precious as gold, a luxury afforded only by the wealthiest. Its use in art displayed both wealth and devotion, influencing trade routes that stretched across the continents. This trade was not just in goods, but in ideas and culture, fostering connections that shaped the Renaissance worldview. Here, it is a video of lapis lazuli being pulverized in a mortar in order to for it to be combined with oil so it can create the pigment for the artist to be able to paint. Now, let's talk about some work of art. Here we have the Madonna of the Books by Sandro Botticelli. And as we can see, Sandro Botticelli has an amazing technique of combining colors that are so bright, vibrant, and the shape and rotation of the body. He was amazing of representing the human body. But what it calls the attention the most, it is the beautiful blue robe that the Virgin Mary is using, which it was painted with lapis lazuli, which was one of the most expensive pigments in the Renaissance art because it was a rock that was imported that needed to be pulverized and needed to be mixed with oil in order to have and be able to be used for canvases. Now that we have an introduction on lapis lazuli, let's move and travel to America. As we enter colonial Latin America, the pigment landscape shifts dramatically. Here, the indigo, or new blue, a vibrant color derived from local plants, dominates. Unlike the imported lapis lazuli, indigo was accessible and widely used, coloring everything from art to clothing. The arrival of European settlers in the New World marked the beginning of a significant cultural and economic exchange that extend to the very pigments used in art. European pigments introduced into the America brought vibrant new colors to the artistic palette of the New World. These include vermilion, a bright red made from cinnabar, which European artists traditionally used to depict nobility and religious figures. Its introduction changed the visual and symbolic vocabulary of native artists, who began incorporate these new pigments into their traditional art forms, thus merging local styles with European influence. Conversely, American pigments like indigo, or as the European used to call it, the devil's dye, had a profound impact when they were brought back to Europe. Indigo, derived from the plant Indigofera tinctoria, was prized for its rich hue blue, superior to the wood previously used in Europe, in both intensity and durability. What is interesting about the indigo is that since it comes from a plant, it needed to be bath, but the bath of the color is green. So when they transfer the blue to a textile, the textile look green. But then with the sun and the air and the oxidation of the color, it will become blue. The introduction of indigo to the European market transformed the textile industry, becoming a staple dye for the Burgoynian cloth markets of England and France. This new dye was impactful, so impactful that it altered trade routes. With European powers establishing and expanding colonies primarily to cultivate indigo, leading to significant shift in global economic power. The exchange of pigment was accompanied by the transfer of knowledge. As artists and craftspeople on both continents adapted to new materials and methods, Europeans learned about the properties of native plants and minerals, while indigenous artists adapt European painting techniques. This bidirectional flow of knowledge not only enriched the artistic tradition of both cultures, but also led to innovation of pigment processing and art making technique. For example, the technique of watercolor painting, which could accommodate the fluid nature of indigo, saw advancement in Europe as a result of experimenting with this new pigment. Economically, the pigment trade was part of the larger movement of goods, ideas, and people that reshaped economies around the Atlantic. It was not just that new products entered the market. The demand for these exotic pigments also fostered a competitive spirit among European merchants, which spurred further exploration and exploitation of colonial territories. The trade in pigments thus contributed to the complex dynamics of colonialism, involving not only economic exploitation but also cultural imposition and hybridization. Moreover, this exchange illustrates how art and economics were intertwined with cultural identity and power dynamics. The pigments carried with them connotation of colonial dominance and economic motive, but also facilitates a form of resistance and adaptation by the indigenous people through the reclamation of these materials in expressing their own identities and narrative. Artists in colonial Latin America adapted European technique to local materials. For instance, indigo was not just a pigment used for frescoes, but it was a symbol of the local identity, providing not just color but a sense of belonging and resilience. It embedded the local landscape into the walls of colonial churches, a testament of the enduring spirit of the people. The evolution from ground minerals to plant-derived colors marked significant technological advances in pigment production. These advancements were not just in the materials used, but in the extraction, preparation, and application methods, reflecting broader technological shift of the period. While lapis lazuli and indigo held significant economic value, their cultural meaning adapted to their context. In the Renaissance, blue represented divine grace and authority, whereas in the colonial Latin America, it symbolized both colonial influence and local resilience. Trading pigments like indigo have reshaped local economies and global trade networks, influencing everything from agricultural practices to international diplomacy. Understanding these pigments allow us to see a fuller picture of economic history. In closing, the story of pigments is a vivid chapter of art history. It illustrates how deeply intertwined our cultural expression are with economic and technological changes. From the lapis lazuli mines of Afghanistan to the indigo field of Latin America, these colors painted a picture of a connected world rich in exchange and innovation. I encourage you to actively engage with the artworks and themes discussed today. Many museums offer virtual tours where you can see Renaissance and colonial artwork up close. Take this opportunity to explore history and see how these pigments tell a story far beyond their visual beauty.